My name is David Roos. I know some of you. I grew up with three sisters, mom and dad. I went to a Bible college named Moody, and we got to study the Psalms there, so I'm really excited about talking about wisdom literature. When I grew up with my dad and asked him a type of quiet time or how to do devotional, he'd always say, if you want an easy devotional to do, just find whatever day it is, go to that Proverbs, and then multiply it by 5, and then, so read the Proverbs, and then those 5 Psalms that go along with it. So what's today? The 10th, so you'd go just read the 10th proverb and go and read the 46th through the 50th Psalm. And so I learned that from him growing up, and so I'd often do that with my devotionals growing up. So I've come to really love the Psalms. Really excited. My goal for us during this session is to, at the end of it, I don't know what's going on there. Punch Club. Let me figure that out. Steam. We don't want that. Steam update. We want the Office instead. My goal for us is for us to fall more in love with Jesus by the end of this. So wisdom literature. Who doesn't want to be wise, right? I mean, this is applicable. Okay, we got one guy who doesn't want to be wise. To put in the negative, who doesn't want to be wise, I'm going to go to our friends Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute here. They're going to help us.
What's the most inspiring thing I ever said? Don't be an idiot. It changed my life. Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing.
Who wants, right? Do you want to be an idiot or not an idiot? Everyone's always going to choose not an idiot. So the overview, we're just going to do an overview of the Psalms, and then we're going to look at how to actually study a psalm altogether really quick. And then we're going to look at a principle that has completely changed my life and changed my friend's life, and I believe has the potential just to change every single aspect of your life when you study the scriptures. Whether it's finances, whether it's business relationships, business deals, whether it's your marriage, whether it's friendships. I think this principle has the potential to just completely echo out and transform every aspect of how you live and how you look at the world. The Psalms, I'm gonna move here. The Psalms, they were written 1,450 years before Jesus came on the scene. To give you a perspective, and they were written over 800 years. That's a long time. So if the last Psalm was written in 2016, that means the first Psalm would have been written 276 years before Columbus set sail. That's 800 years. And if we stick in our current timeline, we'd still have to wait 660 years before Jesus came on the scene. It began with the Israelites wandering in the desert. It went through the Judges. It went through the rise and fall of Israel with their kingdom and kings. The Psalms were written in their Babylonian exile, and they were written and were completed around the finishing of the Second Temple that we heard about. So it's this poetry that was collected over the years. You'll see it in the Psalms that you'll have like sayings of like Psalms of David or Psalms of the son of Korah. And so they were collected probably and put together by a scribe around the time of the Second Temple. Maybe Ezra, maybe another scribe. And all the little inscriptions that you see in the beginning of the Psalm, where it says like a Psalm of David or a Maskil or something like that, no one knows what they are. We don't know if they're inspired or not. We just know that they have been there since probably the Second Temple. It's really cool to think about that the Psalms that you have in your hands, the order that they're in, are the ones that Jesus would have had when he was around, because they'd been around for 600 years. They had begun to be used by Israel as the official songbook. They were used during their festivals, their sacrifices. They were used at coronation ceremonies. They were used for so many different types of events, and they were written in such a way that it wasn't a specific situation often, but they're written as a generality so that anyone can come to them and learn from them. The main theology of the Psalms. You've heard, I think, who is it? Shannon talked about a polemic. Tim talked about a polemic. The main theological overview is that God basically, through his authors and through the Spirit, the Psalms were a polemic against the pagan gods of the nations, specifically Baal and Asherah. If you think about it, they came out of 400 years worshiping multiple gods. worshiping in a culture of multiple deities. It'd be like if all of a sudden you were told, you know what, all the different foods you've been eating, yeah, you can't do that anymore. You've only supposed to have been eating one food this whole time. It was just such a weird shift for them when they were delivered from Egypt to say, no, you worship one God now. And so a polemic. What's a polemic? Basically, any ad that you will see this year for the political campaign, that's a polemic, saying, I am better than my opponent. Except God didn't write in campaign ads. He wrote in the genre of their time, so poetry, psalms, hymns, to show how he was better than Baal and Asherah, that he was the one who actually gave rain and gave food to the ravens, that he was the one who was greater than Baal, the god of lightning and rain. So the Psalms were a constant reminder for Israel when they were sung during their festivals and everything that, no, our God is greater, that there's only one God and that he reigns. That's a major theological overview of what the Psalms are trying to do for Israel. Their poetry, right? If you read in the reading, one of the features of Hebrew poetry is terseness, which means short and concise. All right, point 2, parallelism. See what I did there? Terseness, short and concise. You'll see those phrases. Parallelism, that's another feature of Hebrew poetry. Parallelism, there are books and books and books and books written about parallelism. The basic concept is that you have a clause A, and then you have a clause B, and clause B somehow expounds on clause A. How blessed is the man whose delight is in the law of the Lord, clause A. Clause B, and on his law he will meditate day and night. So you have, you have a man who delights in the law of the Lord. And then the clause B kind of expounds on that a little bit. What does that look like? Well, he meditates on it day and night. That's kind of the most basic function of a parallelism. So that's called a couplet. Sometimes you have a triplet. Sometimes you have 4 of them in a row. And so sometimes you'll have what they have complete couplets, where one is just the exact same as the other. Sometimes they're incomplete, where one word is removed. And so Hebrew poets were masters of using parallelism in modern day parallelism. The best I could think of was a Geico commercial, where you have, what are they? They have like the normal person sitting in the chair saying, I was driving home from work the other day and I hit a deer in the road. And then they have the musician next to them, and he's going, the pedal was to the floor, I was driving 34, when Bambi ran out and crushed my dreams for the weekend. That's kind of what parallelism is, for modern day times. You have this statement, and then you have another statement that kind of expounds on it, all right? Right, lots of there. Poetry has to be studied in its genre, right? If you remember the blood moon several months ago, right? You didn't have any nerds going out going, oh boy, let's go look at the blood moon, get my microscope, I want to see it up close. No, they were going, oh boy, look at the blood moon, let's go get my telescope, I want to see it up close. Right? Because they let what they were studying determine how they studied it. It's the same with the Psalms. So when you go to poetry, when you go to narratives, you don't study poetry like a narrative. You study poetry like poetry. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you like the little music thing that I just did, we're going to look at 7 different types of Psalms with another little musical interlude with kind of modern day Psalms of what you might see today. And I have some notes here just to... All right, so here we go. You have the modern day lament, usually a cry, a petition to God for what's happening, a confession of trust in God, another petition to God, and a vow of praise to God. Yeah. Modern day praise, giving thanks, honor to God. They praise the nature of God. It's joy-filled, often includes a call to praise. Modern day historical. It recounts God's past deliverance of Israel, shows himself manifested over the nations as ruler of all creation. Kind of like love songs when they think back. Modern day wisdom. Often lifts up the Torah as a way to live wisely. Contrasting the wicked versus the righteous gives admission of how to live. So you'll see wisdom psalms. Same with Proverbs. This is Billy Joel, by the way. Love Reign Over Me, modern day enthronement, often sung at festivals when people would worship their gods. And so God used the enthronement song. The main phrase that you'll see in enthronement songs is the Lord reigns. You'll see that all over in different enthronement songs. Kind of like this guy singing Love Reign Over Me. Modern day ascent, pilgrim, Zion. When they were going to Jerusalem, they would sing this about this great place where they would meet God face to face. Right? The center of theocracy, Jerusalem. Songs of Zion, a pilgrim. Modern day royal psalms. They have Davidic king as the front and center. They would be sung at coronations. They would often depict the conquest of the kings. Sometimes at weddings they'd be sung. The only psalm that we see that depicts a future king is Psalm 110. It's a royal song. It'd be kind of like what we sing at weddings here, just to rejoice over love. All right. My lonely days are over. All right. So there you go, 7 different types. All right, so those are 7 different types of psalms. Obviously, that was lifting up love as the greatest thing, where the psalms were lift up God as the greatest thing. So let's dive in. Let's learn how to study a psalm together. We're going to look at Psalm 1. You probably read it. I'm just going to read it, and we're going to look through it real quick, and then we're going to look at the principle that I think will completely transform the way we live and look at the world. Psalm 1 says, "How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked." That's one clause. "Nor stand in the path of sinners." That's the second clause. "Nor sit in the seat of scoffers." That's a triplet right there, using parallelism. "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." That's a couplet, parallelism. "He will be like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its seasons, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. The wicked," yeah, there you go. "The wicked are not so, but they are like chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish." That's like an opposite kind of couplet there. The Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. So this is a wisdom psalm. You look at the genre, right? And then you begin to just basically look at what is the psalmist saying. You notice this doesn't have context. You don't know exactly when this was written, the situation it was about. That's specific so that it can apply to lots of different situations. You'll see that all over the Psalms. Athanasius, one of the early church fathers, wrote, "To any man who sings the Psalms, he will find a mirror to his own soul to see the patterns of his heart, the movements of his minds. If you are looking for repentance, if you face temptation and trial, if you face calamity, in the Psalms you will find words to express just basically your emotions." That was Athanasius. It applies to so many different situations. So for us, the big question is, okay, how do we want to live? Well, do we want to be an idiot like Dwight Schrute, or do we want to be a not idiot, a wise person? This psalm tells us how. "How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked." Don't walk in the counsel of the wicked. Don't stand in the path of sinners. Don't sit in the seat of scoffers. It's very clear to read here. "His delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." So the question is, are we doing that, right? Are we doing that as believers? Are we meditating on his law day and night? But let me tell you something. If we go to a psalm like this, or if any of the psalms or proverbs that depict wisdom and say to ourselves, self, I'm going to become like that tree planted by streams of water. And I'm going to do that because I'm going to meditate on his law day and night. And self, I'm going to not walk like the wicked. And I'm not going to stand in this, in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of scoffers. Self, I'm going to be like that tree. Let me tell you what that's like. That's like a woman named Folly and her son Simple going to the newest restaurant in town. And as they drive into the parking lot, they see a man about to pull into a spot, cut him off, laugh at him. His son Simple goes, #winning. The woman Folly looks at the man and says, "Slowpoke, learn how to drive." They walk into the restaurant, see the same bearded man seated at the bar. As they order their food, they get their appetizers. As they look through the menu, chicken wings, whatever, right? It's the newest place. And the waiter comes back and says, "Are you ready to take an order for the main course?" So yeah, they say they order for their main course. Maybe they get a cheeseburger. Maybe Folly gets a salad or, pasta or something. And then they're eating, and as the waiter comes back and says, "So, do you think you're going to have dessert today?" And Simple looks at her mom, Folly, and says, "Hey, you think we can have dessert?" And Folly says, "Well, let me check my checkbook. Let me check my wallet. Let me see if I have enough cash." And that's when it hits her. Oh no, I don't have my wallet with me. And looks up at the waiter and says, "What am I going to do?" And the waiter says, "Well, let me check on something." So he goes to the old man at the bar, talks to him for a second, comes back. Folly says, "Who were you talking to over there?" "Old guy, I saw that guy in the parking lot." And the waiter says, "Oh, that's the owner." "Oh no," Folly said. But then the waiter says, "You know what? He said he's actually paid for your whole meal." Folly says, "Wow, that's great. So the appetizers, I don't have to pay for that?" "No, it's paid for." She said, "Oh, great. So do you mind if I just leave my son here? Will I just go home to get my checkbook and come back so I can pay you?" And the waiter looked at her and said, No, I don't think you understand. It's been paid for." He said, "Okay, well, the main course. I know that's about $20 for both of us. Maybe my son could do dishes in the back. Maybe I could, go sweep the walk or something." The waiter says, "No, I don't think you understand. The owner said he's got it all paid for." She said, "Okay. That's great. Well, let's order dessert then." "Okay, great. How about a chocolate sundae?" "Great. It looks like that's $7.95. I could come back tomorrow, though, and I could pay for it then." The waiter just looks dumbfounded and said, I don't think you understand. It's already been paid for. You can't repay it." That's what I think it's like if we come to the Psalms and Proverbs and say, "Self, I want to be like that tree planted in streams of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work really hard to meditate on the law. And I'm going to work really hard to not be wicked. I'm going to work really hard to ask myself the question, would an idiot do this? No, an idiot wouldn't do this." And why is that? Because the Psalms are only one part of the story. We have to go forward to see what Christ has done, right? We see that Christ has given to us all the spiritual blessings. That is because of Christ's obedience that we have access to the spiritual blessings, right? Our obedience can't repay what Christ's obedience has prepaid, right? Our obedience can't repay what Christ's obedience has prepaid. You have to think about that when you look at the Psalms and Proverbs. Our obedience can't repay what Christ's obedience has prepaid. And what has he prepaid for? Everything. Every spiritual blessing. Christ is the man who delighted in the law of the Lord day and night, who meditated on his law. He is the tree planted by streams of water. And in him, we have access to all spiritual blessings. We are the tree because we are in Christ. We're in union with him. And so in every single psalm and proverb, what that does is instead of it becoming a list of how we receive that blessing, it actually becomes, in some ways, a polemic against our own self-righteousness. And it shows us, look at all the ways that God has blessed you. Look at all the steps of obedience that Christ has done for you. There's a great C.S. Lewis quote that is in The Great Divorce, where I forget his name. Steve quoted it, and the whatever his name is. But he comes to the woman who's kind of in heaven, and the woman says, "We have no need to love one another anymore because I am in love." And because we have no need of each other's love, that means we can fully love. And it's the same idea. Because we have no need of the law anymore to receive the blessing of God, that means we get to fully walk in the blessing of obedience. We don't have a need to meditate on his law day and night to become like that tree, because Christ has done that for us. Therefore, we get to meditate on his law day and night without the threat of condemnation, knowing that our blessing has already been purchased in Christ. So the Psalms can become a very encouraging book to read, not only because it has the laments and the royals and all the different types of psalms and all the different types of expressions of anger, of pain and sorrow, but because it reminds us constantly again and again and again that Christ has gone before us, walking in obedience, and that he is the wisest one. And in him, we have access to all the spiritual blessings that the wisest one has. So I don't know how much time you have left. You have 10 minutes, and so talk about, and if you want to, look in the Psalms, find one, and then kind of walk through that process, where you say, what do I have to do? Well, that's right, Christ has done it, therefore we have access through faith in Christ to receive that, and now we get to freely walk in it. So, 10 minutes to talk about that. Thanks.